I have my chat box open here. So if you have questions or comments, I will be keeping an eye on that. So if there's something relevant in the moment, I'll keep an eye on that too, because it is nice to bring in a conversation so I'm not speaking at you. I will also, if you see my eyes dart to the corner, I'm going to time keep myself because I want to make sure I don't talk at you for 45 minutes. So I am going to share my screen here. And one thing that you'll learn about me, I like to do presentations that are a little bit more high impact visual. So can everyone still see me? Good?
Yes.
Okay. A little bit more high impact visual. I don't want you to read a book this morning, but you will get this afterwards. And there's also links in the footer that provide a little bit more context and resources.
Kim, I think you got accidentally muted.
Yep, you did.
Perfect. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Awesome. And we will jump right in. Okay, now let's see here. Where am I? Okay, so this is a little bit about me. You can stalk me on LinkedIn and different platforms, but the too long didn't read. Essentially, Human was created over 5 years ago to teach people how to, I always like to say, be nice to each other and use their imagination to actually drive business. So it's interesting for me in the space because it's combining the powers of human resources with a lot of the expertise that I gained in business. And the interesting thing is when you invest in your people, you actually drive business results. And so a lot of what we do at Centrally Human is connect that investment in humans to actually driving business, which a lot of time has been lost. So yes, there's I say a lot of ologies. You know, we use technology and psychology and sociology. My background, I started out as a journalist and then got into data and digital. And through that experience, I realized that as we started to move into this digital age, we forgot about the people that use it. And so we spent millions and millions and billions of dollars on technology and software and all these cool things, but we weren't upskilling and leaning into our employees. And so what I always say is we live in a human-centric era, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. And what I'll walk you through are some critical tenets that you can use right now to not only drive change for the people in your organization and yourselves, but also connect it to a business bottom line. And I always like to say the last thing on this is it's something I've been working on, the frameworks that we've developed as a company for over 10 years. So it works in scale and it works in practice. These aren't concepts that I did with one company that I'm just pretending work across the board, nor are they beautiful theories that fall apart in practice. It's that nice combination of there was the theory, we put the framework into a lot of different companies from a startup all the way to a Fortune 100 like a General Electric and prove them out. So the idea is that this is relevant to you in different shapes and forms, regardless of the size or the type of organization that you're in. I always like to say your status quo strategy is failing. Maybe not for the folks on this call, but for your executives, for your CEOs that maybe need a little punch in the gut. It's not working. Majority of organizations cannot bridge this idea of innovation to a larger business strategy. Majority of leaders find their current development strategy isn't working. Only 20% of engagement initiatives actually result in business growth. Only 4%, and these are all from McKinsey, have achieved diversity and recruitment goals. And 34% of employees believe their organizations relevantly address their needs, meaning the majority of employees feel like there's a disconnect between the organization and themselves. So I always say it's not altruism, it's simple math and good business. So when you invest in people and what motivates them, you teach them how to innovate, and you teach them how to be truly inclusive. You have higher productivity, higher retention, you waste less, you get more money, you drive measurable growth. Again, we all like to think investing in people is the nice thing to do, but in this world, whether you believe in that or not, it's actually just really good business. So the human-centric shift, you'll hear me talk about this a lot, and I'm actually working with my editor. We're publishing the book framework, which is a little bit more of like a user guide manual. So I'll make sure to send copies to the group when that comes out in a month or two. in the early 2000s, YouTube was the first time that video could go on the internet at scale. And that was acquired by Google in like 2007. My husband deployed to Iraq, I think in 2005. And by the time he got back 2.5 years later, it was already the second version of the iPhone. So in a very short amount of time, we went from nothing, very like internet 1.0, where me as a journalist would post an article on the internet and all you could do was read it, to this very engaging user-generated content with smartphones and apps and stuff that businesses were just going, well, I don't know, let's just try it out. Let's figure it out. And on top of that, we had a massive Great Recession. We, as you all know, we were downsizing and asking people to do more with less. And I call that the digital first era. We did everything we could to figure out digital technology, and that was the right thing to do because we didn't know. But what happened around 2015 is there started to be a shift, and I'm sure all of you feel that as professionals and individuals. And I call that the beginning of the human-centric shift, and we're still feeling it today. And it's the combination of an innate need and expectation of individuals and businesses to be human-centric. Human-centric is authentic, simple, and transparent. You could argue radically transparent. We don't like a lot of jargon anymore because 5-year-olds can take a coding class, so I don't care about you having a fancy algorithm. Authenticity. Know your role, know who you are. If you're Pepsi and you're talking to me about social good, but you do nothing but sell soda cans, then that's not of interest to me. I'm going to call you out. And transparency. A lot of companies now are saying, look at Nike, right? We do all this good, but if you're hiring, essentially sweatshop labor and slave labor in other countries, are you really investing in the future of humans? Are you really paying forward that mission? And there's enough access now that people can uncover that transparency. The last thing I'll say on that, in the year 2013, like the early teens, very few companies reported sustainability efforts to Wall Street. Now over 90% of companies report their sustainability efforts to Wall Street because they know that even if they can't measure it directly, the work that they do for the world and individuals in the world actually drives business results. And so there's a huge sustainability effort tied to business now. And the transparency required even from Wall Street and oversight, investors on what people are doing. So this is a whole different conversation and talk on how to be human-centric, but I'm going through it because it's really important to understand that not only do humans expect this of each other because we're burnt out from being digital first, but we expect it from other companies. Your employees expect your company to be human-centric. That's hard because companies, as you know, are innately not human. They're legal entities. So how does a legal entity that is literally built to probably do some kind of product or service humanize itself in a way that's authentic, transparent, and simple? That's really hard to do. So I'm going to talk through 11 secrets to unleash that growth, and it is centered on this idea of human centricity. So number 1, find your brand soul. The conversation around a brand soul has been out there since probably 2012. I didn't invent it. But the idea is that your brand, at some point, your company was created for a reason. And the reason why startups do so well and become so disruptive is because there's very little space between that spark and that need and that purpose and the go-to-market and the way that they connect with their employees. So there's that really strong connection between the soul, that creation moment, and how they work. The older your company is, the harder it is to bridge that gap. There's just a lot of space and time and crap in the middle. So I always like to say, dig up that mission statement. Find your creator story. And if you work for an insurance company where the creator story was insurance made a lot of money, then it's because maybe you allowed people an access to make a good living that they never had before. And you let people access sales talent in an age when factory work was all that was out there. So even if you have kind of a soulless company like insurance, where it was our mission and the reason we were built was to make money, there's still a nugget of love and purpose and bigger picture there, even if it's just giving access to good jobs to a lot of people to raise their families. So as the leaders of humans, it's really important to capture that mission, that vision, and that brand purpose and pull it back out and try to figure out how does it live in today's world And you'll find other brands doing this today, right? I work with a lot of corporations and nonprofits and government agencies now that they're trying to re-identify why do we exist and how do we pull that original purpose into today's world. Number 2, your future is human, not software. It's really interesting when I talk with companies, and I started this work, really early on. They said, well, we'll save so much money by automating. We'll just get a lot of software. Software is really, really expensive, and you actually need to hire more employees, or even if they're fewer employees, they cost you more money to manage that software. And in addition to that, depending on the software and the automation that you're purchasing, you might be giving away your company to an outside organization of software that doesn't care, isn't transparent in how they're designing it, and doesn't actually hold you as an equal partner. So again, we're doing a high-level overview, but when you think about how to manage your business, your future is actually based in the humans on your team and upskilling them and bringing them into the process versus outsourcing. And if you're gonna look at adding new technology, be really mindful of all those hidden costs that come in, because what you think is automation and you're gonna be able to, get rid of a lot of menial tasks and replace it with software, yes. And you might have to hire some really expensive individuals, or you could actually be detrimenting the productivity of the team because they feel like they're not part of your growth. And again, this is some of the work that we do. There's a lot of folks that do this, but the future is in human, not technology. Technology is table stakes. And so if you're looking at how to grow your business, make sure when you're looking at those automation costs, it's not just at that top level subscription cost. There's a lot of other pieces to it. And it could also have a barrier to your customer relationships. Number 3, and this is one that I'm personally very passionate about, and Centrally Human has done a lot of work on. Obviously, right, we talk about inclusive innovation, especially today. Replace platitudes with action. When after George Floyd and Breonna Taylor's death, when I started getting some email chains, right, Best Buy sent me a note saying, we're going to do better, and we're having our minority employees, our employees of color, put together a committee to inform us what we should do. And I thought, that's something you should have maybe done 10 years ago, but why are you asking your employees to work for free? So these are your employees of color that are underprivileged, marginalized, and victim to an institutionalized system of racism, to do more free work to tell you, Best Buy CEO, how to not be racist, when you could read a book or hire a consultant for very little money to do that work for you. So you're not asking your employees to do that work. So nowadays, and this is the key about human centricity, replace platitudes with action. The head of HR from Adidas has already been forced to resign, and she was in Germany, because people are done with platitudes. They want action. This movement is not changing. And again, there's a whole other conversation around this and work that we could do and frameworks that are involved. But make sure you have a DEI officer and give them a budget. Have inclusion training, not that sexual harassment checkbox once a year, don't be racist, but actual inclusion training. And I'll send a link to you afterwards of the Centrally Human training that we've done with the American Medical Association and large organizations. And at minimum, do the work yourself. Read the 1619 Project from the New York Times. Read the book, White Fragility. Do the work, and then ask, what else can we do? Because it's no longer about, we're gonna do better. It's, this is what I've done. This is what our organization is doing. And we will measure and continue to grow with your support and accountability. 4, and this is what really got me excited. We were chatting about it beforehand. I'm not sure how many of you are going into office building settings. So the next couple ones are really about that psychological safety. Platitudes with action. This is physical and psychological safety. It's important because your employees' lives are threatened. This is very real. This is life or death. The pandemic is also life or death. And my heart goes out to you, your colleagues, and company leaders, because of the way that we've funded and not funded our public health agencies. you're in a position now where you're not only a leader in HR, but you're also a medical expert, an epidemiologist, a virologist, you know, like you're taking on a lot of these hats. And the reality is your local public health agency is underfunded. And it has been for a long time. It just didn't matter because we didn't have a global pandemic of this magnitude. Partner with them. You can't do this by yourself. You're not equipped to be the public health agency, but you're being forced to take on that role. So call up your local public health agencies, and there's links in this presentation that I'll send you, and ask them how you can partner. And whether that's a grant or funding or just having communication, that local public health agency is critical to the health of your employees beyond a health insurance company. It's really, really important to engage with them. Number 5, if you can, especially if you're going into, trying to figure out a safe work environment, consult with an epidemiologist. Again, there's a link in here. There's epidemiologists that are billing consulting hours where they can come in and either do a virtual walkthrough or have a conversation or walk through your business and say, based on true epidemiological standards, this is a safe or not safe environment. And if you can make that investment, then it might be good for your own psychological safety, liability, and also your employees to say, hey, we spent $1,000 and had a real epidemiologist walk through our office and say, this is gonna be good. But the reality is we're all kind of doing our own, individual, what we think is right based on our situation. And so there are epidemiology consultants that you can hire and talk to and make sure that your space is safe for your employees. Because as we all know, sick or psychologically distracted employees are not productive. On-site coaching and therapy. This one is really important to me as someone who's worked full-time in environments. I've been, I would say, in very healthy and also very unhealthy work environments. I've seen the gamut, both in large corporation and small startup. I am a female. I have experienced sexual harassment and sexual discrimination based on my gender, and I've seen it based on race. So the reality is sometimes our systems just aren't enough. And as I'm sure you all know, and you can add comments in the comment box, while you wish people would go to HR more, there is trust barriers sometimes that allow people to see you as a true advocate and support system. And we've also outsourced a lot of this to tech. So we expect employees to just log into the interweb, your intranet, and click on a link and try to click on all these links to find help. What you could do is have on-site coaching or therapy. There's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. I don't think I have to break down for you what's going on right now. We've got working parents that don't have the bandwidth, that are exhausted. We've got a country of people that are now banned from traveling internationally, so there's psychological issues with that. We've got folks that haven't taken their vacation time. If you read the studies, there's no one's taken their PTO, so we're all actually burnt out. And on top of that, there's pressure to keep your job, keep your family safe, and a lot of people really stepping in and saying, our system is racist, and that hurts me as an individual, regardless of your color or background, and how do I change that and feel like I can take action and be a change in a system where I don't feel like I know how to navigate. And all of that takes brain space when they're trying to show up to work. So bring in an objective outside consultant. There's a lot of workplaces that would bring in a masseuse, right, for wellness. Bring in an on-site business coach. Your managers can't be coaches and therapists and do their job right now. Most can't do it in a great setting because coaching and therapy is an actual skill as opposed to business management. But especially now, if you were going to spend money before on a massage therapy chair or a lunch or a special treat, give people access to a business coach that can sit down with them and help them navigate what's going on. That can refer them to a mental health therapist that understands how to do that referral. Centrally Human does this, and I have other colleagues that do this as well, where myself or other coaches come in and we'll just have office hours. People can come up and talk about challenges, problems, how to have hard conversations, talk about this is what's going on. Do I need a therapist? How do I find a therapist? Like all that stuff that you don't feel safe or secure having in a business conversation, but you don't have to do anywhere else. Give them access to someone for, an hour a week that people can reach out to and then scale as needed. It's really small, but it gives your employees real access to help, and it shows that there's a commitment. Family care. Updating your policies and an independent reporting line. As you know, usually there's some break in the middle of middle management that is doing the wrong things and not supporting family. I have 2 clients right now that just left their jobs because they were new moms and discriminated against. And they tried to talk to leadership and there was just a break in the system, right? There was a protection on the executive leader and they didn't address the issue and she left. We all know the financial and business impacts of that. So having an independent reporting line or that coach to update your family policies, realizing that people can't afford, all the daycare costs have gone up. Schools may or may not open. People can't afford good childcare, and that takes time away from a work day. And a lot of people can't afford to go part-time. So how do we build in flexible family policies, and how do we give employees an access to say if they're not being supported by their manager in legal and policy ways? Number 8, and I know we're going through this quickly, but this is recorded, and you can always call and have another conversation with me. This one is actually started coming up in the news. Educate and take an active role with your building internal air quality, IAQ. Very sexy with casinos. Casinos, of course, right? Because you can smoke in them, so they have to churn good air quality. The more oxygen, the more you want to stay awake, the more money you want to spend. Knowing your building IAQ is critical, especially with virus transmission. And now they're having reports about what were the hotspots in the South, and it might have been because of inadequate air conditioning systems that weren't circulating and cleaning air correctly. So there's a link in here to understand internal air quality. But if you're going into a building, chances are you don't own it. And chances are there's actually an engineer that does this for a living working for that building that you're paying for through your rent. Call that individual up and walk through what they're doing with their IAQ, how it works, and how they're modernizing it for an era of airborne viruses. Because there are ways to make sure that outside air is circulating in, the way that they're filtering it, how long it takes to move air around a building. I've been in offices where everyone's screwing with the vents, right? If you're under that cold spot. So how do they make sure that people aren't unintentionally screwing up the airflow? But that person, they always say the CFO is your new best friend. The CHRO is your new best friend. The building engineer doing your internal air quality is your new best friend. One, because they've actually found that a lot of women are non-productive because we set the air conditioner way too cold for women, which are sometimes over 50% of the building population. 2, if it's not oxygenated enough, it makes people tired. So you can actually improve productivity by improving the air quality scientifically, right? And 3, airborne virus transmission can be mitigated with an improved air quality filtration system. Number 9, become a journalist. So hard pivot to something a little bit soft and opaque, but become a journalist means 3 things. It means 1, starting to think differently, about the building that you're in and how it works and how people are thinking and feeling. So becoming a journalist is being unknowingly inquisitive. As a trained journalist, becoming a journalist also means finding the value and the love and the appreciation in little human stories. The best journalists tell stories about the beautiful little human experiences that we all encounter. And as we look to build people up and have people lean in, becoming a journalist is celebrating the individual and understanding how something that's a small hardship can really shape a world. A parent whose child is taking the bus to Francis Parker Private School in Chicago for an hour because they're on scholarship and they want that opportunity. And understanding the ripple effect of that parent's sacrifice and mental stress and how to support them to be successful in your company because that parent has grit, tenacity, and hella problem-solving skills. Becoming a journalist is also empowering your employees to tell their stories. And this is, again, that connection to business, because consumers want to buy products and services from human-centric businesses. And human-centric businesses highlight their humans. Their humans are their employees. So set the example. Like, you are the human resource representative. Like, you are the humans of the company. Are you on social media getting comfortable saying, this is our mission and I believe in it and I'm so excited to support my employees and here's 3 things we're doing? You know, are you taking back the power of human resources? Because the reality is you are squarely in the middle of this new world. And, you know, Centrally Human is designed specifically here to support you. And it blows me away how quickly the world has changed to show how critical this business and this help is. But also that's what people want to buy from. I want to buy from companies who treat their employees well. I want to vote with my dollars. And I think it's really important as you look at, you know, employers giving their employees access to free speech and, you know, taking care of people and leaning in and not saying platitudes, but actually doing action. There's a lot of power, and that all comes into journalism and storytelling. The last part of being a journalist is moving fast. Journalists work on deadlines. And so for business people, regardless of your setting, don't overthink it. You have a due date, get out there. That doesn't mean it's not compliant and you say stupid things, because there's a lot of repercussions on that. But if you're saying, oh, we want to do an employee video, but we need a camera, we don't have a lot of money or time, and we don't have budget. No, you have a smartphone and a computer. Low production value is hot. If you have a high produced video, it doesn't feel very authentic. It means you spent too much time trying to figure out how to talk like a normal person. Turn on your video, talk like a normal person, say things that are legally compliant and agreeing with the company, run it through legal, get it online 1 week, right? 30 seconds or less. We live in a TikTok world. It's got to be raw, real, and fast. And journalists know how to work on deadlines. You don't need to tell a whole story in a little bit of time. There will be time for your novel. But right now you need to have that human face in your company. And even a 10-second, my company gives a shit video, or I work for this company and I give my guarantee that we're taking care of our humans, is very, very powerful. Number 10, use intrinsic motivators. Intrinsic motivators are actually what drives scientifically proven productivity and retention. You know, we don't want to lose employees, but we definitely don't want employees to check out and stay. You know, an employee that quits and doesn't leave is the worst. So we really want to make sure we're understanding and tapping into an intrinsic motivator. Once you have people paid adequately, raises actually don't drive retention or productivity. They help for a short term, but the person's still probably going to leave or check out because they're not having their intrinsic needs, whether they believe in value or autonomy or collaboration. There are 10, and there's a link in here that explains it, on what an intrinsic motivator is. Altruism, you know, everyone's different. And so for me, I value autonomy. That's an intrinsic motivator of mine. If you micromanage me, I'm going to feel stifled. Now, for other people, collaboration and, you know, very hands-on management might make them feel valued, right? If you're a very hands-off manager with someone who values collaboration, they're not going to have their needs met. So you can think of intrinsic motivators as like the love language for work. And these are specifically motivators to drive workplace productivity and retention. If someone is not intrinsically motivated by accolades and all you do is do reward programs and accolades, they're not going to be motivated. And so there's really easy assessments that we do to understand what are those intrinsic motivators for that person and where is the gap. And the closer you close that gap, the more measurable productivity and business output that you show. And that's actually something that we measure across the span of 6 months. So something as small as like a 10-minute pulse survey on what's your intrinsic motivator and are you having that need met, done over the course of 3 months with a business action plan, helps you coach managers, coach individuals to articulate their needs and their style and be more productive and drive more output for the business. So the way that we work in data, everything is very individualized. This takes all those modern individualized marketing, one-to-one conversations. We always tailor products and services for customers, and we're going into niche markets. It's that same thing, but for your humans in your company. It's a very scalable way to get one-on-one understanding of what's going to drive you, and I'm going to measure it, and I'm going to show ROI on it. And then finally, redefining innovation. Innovation happens across the spectrum. And so I do this talk a lot about re-identifying that every single person in your organization is an innovator. And as an innovator, they have a right, duty, and obligation to not only share their ideas, no matter how big or small, but listen to others' ideas. And so when we talk about inclusive innovation, innovation without inclusivity doesn't count because you're missing out on a ton of great ideas. If you have Black women in your organization that don't feel comfortable for whatever reason bringing their voice to the table, you're missing out on incredible ideas. So we need to empower every individual to know it as their right, duty, and obligation to share innovative ideas and to create spaces and teach people how to shut up and listen and say, that's interesting, let's write it down and think about how we can do that. Or how can we change it to make it possible? And so there's a lot of frameworks in innovation. I'll send you a link to an online course that I give that I'll offer you guys with a discount on how to be innovative and then how to translate that into a business plan. But innovation happens across the spectrum. At the top right corner is like the invention of the iPhone, right? Net new, expansive, changes the world. At the bottom left, these are iterative changes, right? These are small little things that might change one or two people, but done at scale can change your entire organization. So for example, if someone works in Excel and they develop a macro that saves them 10 minutes of time in data processing, they probably wouldn't tell anyone if they didn't think of themselves as an innovator. They'd say, I'm doing something normal and whatever. If they're an innovator, it is their right, duty, and obligation to share that with people, and it is their right, duty, and obligation to say, oh, that can save me time, I'm gonna do it, and then I'm gonna tell people I'm doing it, and then you can look at that collective time saved and the improved outputs, and that's what's gonna drive company growth. So in this matrix, the horizontal, the iterative to expansive is your impact. And the new and optimize is the idea. Is it a net new idea, or are you optimizing something that's in existence? And the iterative and the expansive is the immediate impact. Is it something small, that, iterative that we attach to one or two people? Or is it expansive? You're literally building a new marketplace. We're gonna see companies grow when they empower their human beings, all human beings. That's really critical for inclusion, bringing more people to the table, promoting them up through the chain. Frontline diversity doesn't count. You got to move them up into decision-making roles. And there's strategies that we do on how to do that within this inclusive innovation framework. And then help them learn how to take innovative ideas to themselves, their teams, and the market. Innovation, the way I define it, is your imagination with constraints. So innovation is the human imagination with business constraints. So when you harness your humans who innately have imagination as part of our humanity, and you teach them through frameworks how to leverage their constraints of time and money to innovate, then you can actually drive measurable business results. But the business itself isn't empowered to do that as much as an HR department is. So invest in your people, reframe all employees' expectations on how to be innovative, and build that company culture of inclusive innovation, and you can directly tie that to business ROI. I included this here because I think it's really important to prove my statement in the beginning that this isn't just platitudes, this isn't a theory, this actually works. You can read this on your own. And so I want to end this with, and I'm time managing, so I know we went through pretty quickly, but I'm going to stop here, and I'm curious, was any of these, and I just saw that note from Tom that, there was 11 secrets here. That's a lot. Some of them are going to resonate with you and your situation, some of them aren't. So does anyone want to share a big aha moment? What resonated with you that you either said, I've been saying this and it's nice to hear someone else say this, or something that you'd never thought of before that, clicked with you and you thought that's what I was looking for. That's something that connects with me.
I have unmuted everybody, so please feel free to speak.
Kim, this is Tom Kennedy. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. First of all, I liked your presentation. And I will tell you that, to me, the challenge is the gap. And the gap being from the current corporate culture to a corporate culture that does emphasize the importance of employees. And one of the major changes that I have seen over the last few years is the role that private equity has played.
Yeah.
And I mention this because I work with 3 private equity firms, and all of them have emphasized the importance of developing the employee base. And they understand the importance for companies to achieve a better bottom line is through a mindset where they actually have a development strategy. And I'm talking an intense, like a business strategy, where there is a thorough employee development strategy. And the last thing I want to say is that, to me, the challenge is going from what is and the mindsets of the people that are running these businesses, because the businesses I deal with are all interested in one thing and one thing only, and that's increasing profitability.
Yep.
The challenge is to get them to understand that the best way to increase profitability is to do the things that you've mentioned, Kim. And to me, the 3 things that have to take place is, first of all, consciousness raising. How do you get people to understand that the words you use are not some psychobabble? Because I will tell you, many of the middle managers and the owners of some of these smaller companies, they'll just look at you, smile, and when you turn around, they're going to say, that's a crock of BS.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically all I want to say is you got to do consciousness raising first. Then you got to kind of do some knowledge and then skill transfer. But I like what you're saying, and it's an ideal that hopefully that we all can strive for.
Yeah.
That's all.
You know what I want to add on to that. Thank you, Tom. I'm going to try and organize my thoughts because you had so much good stuff in there. One, you mentioned private equity. It was interesting because there was an article that just came out on how private equity has silently changed our whole culture because of the way that they invest and the way that they operate as like these pseudo banks. And a lot of them come in but purely to flip a business. And so that changes the whole dynamic, right? That really undermines investing in long-term growth and success if your short-term goal is to flip. But the second thing you said, and I'll actually add this in when I send it to you, there are a ton of business metrics, to Tom's point, that show that when you invest in people, it drives business. And so, yes, the gap is getting business people to think, it's not altruism, it's good business. And realizing that their methodologies for doing so are very kind of 1980s, and right now when they're teaching MBA programs and everything coming out in the best business practices are around this human-centric idea. But to Tom's point, it's how do you change those words and that mindset so people don't feel like it's, all these kind of soft psychology-ish words and feel-good moments. It's actually like good business. So what gets me excited, Tom, and I mean this, and this isn't a pitch, I guess it kind of is because I built this company and we do good work, but because I worked as like a chief marketing officer and a marketing executive and was that corporate person for so long, this company is built to literally translate everything that you're trying to do to those corporate stakeholders in their language, because I don't care if they get it or not, as long as it's getting done. And so being able to build in that business language, and then at the end of the day, to turn around and say, oh, that's what we were doing? Yeah, that's what you were doing. I know you want to sit through a cool tech demo, and it feels so good and flashy and pretty and all this stuff, and we have this idea of good business and it's fundamentally wrong. And that's why we're not going to grow over the next 10 years. Yes, it got us to here and that's fine, but it's not going to get us success in the next 10 years. And so 100%, Tom, and I'll actually add some of those business metrics from McKinsey and other, reliable like business CEO sources that people look at to validate that it's actually for the next 10 years, you're going to drive more growth through human investment in your company than you will through acquisitions, outside tech, or any kind of product enhancement. That worked for the last 10 years, but we can't use the model from before for the model for next. And for me as a business partner, I get really excited because I don't feel like we have a choice. These people that are our employees are our neighbors and our kids coming out of school and our 50-year-olds who have 50 more years of value to add into this world and experience. And so I am intrinsically motivated to drive change. And I think I will add some of this in because the experience that Centrally Human brings is translating to your point, how do you speak in that business stakeholder language to help them just do it to make money? Don't worry about if it's this word human distracts them or some of the soft training. But I love that you brought that up because that is the biggest barrier and they will fail. Like the status quo is failing and it's failing faster now because of everything going on this year than before. There's a lot of psychology around what employees think. Everyone in this world is an employee, right? Even if you're a CEO, you're an employee of some board of directors or Wall Street. We just saw the entire world shut down in less than a month. The whole global economy shut down in less than a month. And we all saw it and experienced it. So now there's the expectation that change can happen very quickly. So now when companies say, well, we can't do that because it's too hard, there's an expectation that's been reset in everyone's mind saying, I don't think so, because we literally just shut down the world for a little bit and that happened pretty fast and that's pretty big and complex. So I'm pretty sure, to your point, Tom, like employees are saying, I'm pretty sure you can do an ongoing education program on how not to be racist. And so that gets me really empowered and jazzed. And also, for the folks listening to this that are the executives, you should have a healthy level of fear because it will happen to you and you need to get in front of it and take action because what you did before isn't going to work moving on. And we're already seeing executive shakeups happen. That was really strong. I acknowledge that. I don't want to put a freeze on anyone else's comments, but I am empowered to help you all succeed and get those budgets and get those investments. My girlfriend is a social policy and education expert. We went to Northwestern together, and the curriculum that Centrally Human designed is specifically based on ongoing adult education in corporate settings, because that's what Tom brought up, right? We need business development models in corporate kind of adult education, which hasn't existed before. But how do we send adults back to school at work connected to business outcomes, not taking away from business outcomes? And so that's going to be the new movement. And I'd love to have conversations with you all around how to bring that to organizations as well. But again, we've got 10 more minutes, so maybe 5 more minutes of Q&A. Does anyone else have a big aha moment they want to share? Something that like clicked with them? Was it the internal air quality? Being a journalist and getting on social media without having fancy equipment? I always say, like, if your screen is small enough, you look fabulous, right? Like I have this delusion that I look amazing on video because I always make sure I only see myself like in a thumbnail. It's like blind confidence. Does anyone else want to share?
Hi, this is Lisa Sugar. Thank you so much. Lots of wonderful points made. The aha for me was the air quality, very beneficial. We have employees not only in our offices across the world, but also on site at clients. And so as we plan the strategy for return to work on the client sites, the information has been very beneficial. So thank you very much. It's something we've been brainstorming. What are all the different facets that we need to look at? And that clearly is very important. So appreciate that insight.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when I share this out, there's a link in the footer that you can click on, and it gives like, there's a trade organization for everything, but it's a reputable link to learn more about it and get connected to more resources.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and for all the information, and this was great.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to share an aha moment for the second question? What will you take action on? And I'll challenge you all, if you're not taking a walk, which hopefully if you're able to be a little mobile and enjoy this as a podcast format this morning. If you don't want to share, take a minute and think about one thing you can take action on. You know, if you have a DEI person, do they have a budget? Go ahead. If you haven't looked into IQ, maybe your next thing is to, you know, read the link that I send. It might be, truthfully, it could be scheduling a call with me. I'll send out my calendar link as well, and just have a 30-minute conversation, you know, to keep, you know, specifically around you and what you can do to be successful. It can be the commitment to challenge your executives because jobs are at stake now. I mean, you know, the German HR executive got ousted because of the American unrest. That's huge. From a big company, Adidas. I mean, these are big things that are happening. You're the movers and shakers of the world now. And I'll tell you, like, you have an advocate in me. Whatever I can give you, statistics, background, I'll send you everything today. I'll send you our curriculum, the business case. You'll get this with all the links, but I'm invested in a productive world, and I'm invested in you as leaders to be successful and drive that.
I know that you're going to be sending your presentation out to everybody, so your contact information will be in there. I think we should kind of wrap up here. Just a little light housekeeping. I want to let everybody know about our August roundtable. That will be with Wes Beckton. He's the owner of George Washington Street Partners, and that will be on August 5th at 9 a.m. It's going to be called Have a Conversation. And the topic that is very important to everybody, you know, we've Katie and I have had our ear to the ground, and it's about diversity. So that's something very important. So please put it on your calendar. We would love to have you join us on, again, August 5th. And Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you to close us out.
Great.
Phil?
Yes, I'm here. I'm trying to get there. Sorry. Okay, sorry guys. So, well, thank you. Thank you, Kim, for a great presentation, great thought, great, the 11 secrets. Really gives you, pause to think about what we're doing and what we need to be thinking about, what your point, and ask this for the group, what is the one thing that you will take action on after this presentation? So take some time to reflect on that. Kim, thank you very much for the presentation, for the slides that you're sharing with us, the links that you're going to share with us. I'm going to, take you up on the innovation online training. That sounds very intriguing to me. So appreciate that. I want to thank Denise and Katie. They're our program directors who do an awesome job of making sure we have these really impactful roundtable sessions. So appreciate that. Look, you will get an email from Kristen Manning from NHRC with the SHRM and HCRI credit. So be on the lookout for that, as well as the survey. and the slides. So thank you all for attending today. We truly appreciate your support, and thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you on our August roundtable, August 5th, 9 to 10 a.m., so same time. So have a great day, stay cool, and we will see you in a month. So thank you.
Thank you all. See you next month.
Bye now.
Hopefully talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Denise.
You bet.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Denise.
Thanks.
I'll send you all that information.
Awesome.
Great, thank you.
I'll send you a big link today.
Okay.